there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to be doing some block colouring, and I'm starting off with a piece of watercolour paper. The Tim Holtz watercolour paper is my absolute favourite for ink blending on because I love all the help I can get when I want to ink blend. So this is what the packet looks like, and you can buy them in large sheets as well, but I just buy these little 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch sheets, and you can see one side is perfectly smooth and then this side has a little bit more texture if that's what you're wanting, but I pretty much just use the smooth side for my card making. And then I'm going to use some masking paper. This is the Gina Thermoweb masking paper, which is definitely a favorite of mine. Again, it's one of those tools that takes away so much frustration in my card making when I really want a good mask and I want it to be able to hold up to lots of ink and lots of blending. I want it to be able to have the perfect amount of stick to my paper because I don't want to tear my paper, but I also don't want it to lift up from my paper. So that's a couple of the reasons why I like this one, but anything would work. You could even use strips of copy paper with some temporary adhesive behind them. And I just cut all of these strips down to, I think they are 1/4 inch strips, but again, it doesn't matter what size you make them, just make them all uniform, or you could make them all different. It's up to you. And then I did flip my mat over because I decided for this I wanted them to be straight. I wasn't going to go for the purposeful angles and different shapes. I wanted these to be all relatively even. So the grid lines on the other side here really help me out, and I just kind of tear the pieces that I need and make sure one end is overlapping another little bit there in the middle, the long strip that goes from top to bottom. Now, there is no rhyme or reason as to where I am putting these, just put them wherever you like and you'll be good to go. It doesn't have to be straight. As I said, you could definitely do angles and things on purpose and then you don't have to do any measuring. But this is just the design that I just came up with. Again, no rhyme or reason. And at this point, I hadn't chosen the stamps or anything I was going to use. So yeah, I just wanted to do whatever was kind of came to mind at the time. Now this is one of my finger dauber storage containers, and all of these finger daubers came inside the storage container from scrapbook.com, but I have emailed them and they have said that this has been discontinued, which I am so upset about because this is such a brilliant way to store your ink daubers. But anyhow, I am choosing to use the Simon Hurley inks today, but the oxide inks would work just as well, or any dye inks or pigment inks that you want to blend together. I'm choosing Rosy Cheeks and Crown Me just to begin with, to start off with, and I'm just choosing one little segment of my card front here. And I kind of started off and then I thought, I don't really trust myself to keep this within the lines, so I'm just using some post-it notes just to mask off, even though there's that little tiny masking, but it's just 1/4 inch, so I wouldn't trust myself not to go over top of that even with these finger daubers. And again, you could use your normal ink blending tools and things like that, but I just felt like because this was such a small space, the finger daubers work really well. Next up, I'm going to use the Triple Berry and Prom Queen. Again, any colors that you want to blend together, any combination or any types of inks that you have are going to work here just perfectly fine. And in fact, you could kind of do these as watercolor, or you could use coloring in pencils, or you could even do some Copic marker or alcohol marker blending. I mean, anything that you have that works well or you enjoy using as a medium. Now for the next block, I am going to use some Tropical Tango and some Clear Skies ink, and I'm just reusing my little post-it notes to keep masking off those little areas. And I will just say that I am not ink blending in one direction. I am doing them, some of them I'm doing kind of top to bottom, so the layers are horizontal, and then others, the layers are going to be vertical, so it's kind of side by side different coloring. So I'm not doing them the same, I'm just changing it up with whatever I want. This one is going to be Remember Me and Overzealous. Again, this is just a green and a blue, and anything that you have will work fine. I am going to work my way through. I've really sped this bit up because I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. Remember that when you are ink blending, it is really key to keep going back and forward between the two colors. So here I have the Traffic Cone and Guppy colours, and I start off the Guppy, which is the orange, up the top, and I'm going to bring that down a little bit further than intended, and then the Traffic Cone, which is more of a red colour, I'm going to bring that up into the orange, and then I go back to the orange blender and then back to the red. So I make sure that I keep going between the two so that I have a really nice blend where they meet in the middle. This one is going to be Crown Me, and I think it's Clear Skies. So I do end up reusing some of the colours that I've used previously on different little blocks. And the final one here is Rosy Cheeks and Traffic Cone, which is just a light pink and then a red colour. Then I want to get some stamps to stamp on top of all of this masking and colour blocking. So I just had a really big dig through my stash, saw what I could find, and these are what I came up with. So I've got this Woodware Craft Collection one. This is the Queen Anne's Lace. So I'm just going to use that really nice big stamp there in the middle, and I've put it on an acrylic block. Then the next one I'm going to use is, this is an old stamp from Magenta. It is, I'm pretty sure it's been discontinued. And then I have this Bow Bunny Wildflowers stamp set here. And down in the middle it has that really big, large stamp, which I love. But I knew that as soon as I saw the stamp set, I would use them far more if they were individual. So I am going to cut these apart. I'm pretty sure this is just an acrylic stamp. So I'm just using some little Cutter Bee, really sharp, fine scissors. And I'm going to cut apart that top branch of flowers. And then I am going to be leaving those leaves put together. And then I'm going to use the smaller leaves again on the project today. And I'm going to use some of the flowers as well. I'm using some Versamark sticky embossing ink, and it is really important during this to use my anti-static powder tool because I definitely don't want any of the embossing sticking where it shouldn't be. And just because I'm using kind of bigger stamps, I am going to mask off the areas again using those post-it notes. But just go through your stamp collection and I promise you, you'll have something that works for all of these. This technique kind of reminds me of the retiform technique that I did a video on a little while ago, somewhat similar. Obviously you don't do the masking and keep that white. Everything is kind of a little bit closer together, but similar technique. So I'm just doing a couple of blocks at a time, and it's easiest just to do a couple because I'm using those post-it notes to mask it off. I didn't want those to kind of put sticky where I didn't need it. So I'm just doing a couple of blocks and then I will add the embossing powder. Then I will heat set those and then I will come back and continue on with more. So for this one, I often go with gold, but I really felt like silver would be fun for today's version. So I added a little bit of the Ranger Silver embossing powder. I will tip the rest back into the little jar, and then I will heat set this using my heat gun. And this is what is the good thing with some masking paper. When you heat it up or put the heat gun near it, it often peels away because it heats up the adhesive and doesn't make it quite as sticky. But there's one good thing that I do love about the Gina K one is that it stays adhered to my sheet, which is really important. Now I went ahead and did all the rest of those other blocks because they're all done the same way. But now I have left one block empty for where my sentiment will go on this card. So I am going to use the sentiment that is included in one of those stamp sets I used. So I'm going to use the one down the bottom left-hand corner. Again, just go through your stash, find a sentiment that will fit in one of those blocks, and then make sure you leave it empty. Now I am going to actually kind of do this in two different parts. So I'm going to center it up, and that is one of the reasons that I'm using a stamping tool for this technique. So I want to separate out the word birthday just to make it extra special because this is going to be a birthday card. So I've used a little bit of low-tack tape, but you could just use a couple of post-it notes. And then I'm adding the Versamark ink, which is the sticky embossing ink. Then I will stamp it down, so the only thing that is going to stamp here is the word birthday. Then I'm going to add the silver embossing powder, which is just the same that I used on the rest of the panel. So it all matches and it's all cohesive. And the only little bit that will be done here is just that little word birthday. And that's why it's really important to have a fine embossing powder as well, so that you can use it for detailed images as well as little fine sentiments. This little word birthday is quite small. I have heat set it and now you can see it nice and shiny there. Then I need to add in the rest of the sentiment. So I can put my card front back in place because of the stamping tool. So I know that it's going to stamp exactly in the right place. And then I stamp the top part, May Your. And then I'm just going to make sure to clean that off because I don't want to get any residue from that black up the top. And then I will mask off the top 2 lines, which is May Your Birthday. And then I will ink up the rest of it in the VersaFine Onyx Black ink and stamp the rest of the sentiment. Now I know this feels like a couple of extra steps, but I really do feel like it makes the card a little bit special having that word birthday all nice and silver embossed. Now here is the fun part. This is one of my favorite parts always, is removing masking. And so I'm just gently going to pull all these pieces off because I would hate anything to happen at this point of the card. So I'm going to gently remove them all and it looks really good. I'm really happy with the nice crisp, clean results. I've put a little bit of double-sided tape on the back here, just my usual 4-corner trick, and I'm popping this down onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base so that that same border is carried on around the outside. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you give this block colouring technique a go, and I will leave all the links in the description box down below to the products that I have used today, at least any that are still available. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!